Hey everybody, welcome to 13 Days of Halloween. My name's Alicia and today we're going to be making sublimated bows. I'm going to take you guys through every step between how to design it in Canva, how to print it on wide format paper, as well as how to sublimate the bow with the heat press and then make the entire bow. So stay tuned and watch how we do the entire process. Okay, so it looks like I've got quite a bit of large supplies that you're gonna need. And it's really just because our cutting mat is so big and I've got a bulk amount of fabric. But the ingredients for this project are relatively simple. So you're gonna need this bullet fabric. Now this is a polyester based fabric. We ordered it off of Amazon and we got quite a bit of it. We can make lots and lots of bows with this much fabric. And then I've got a rotary cutter. These are little stretchy bands, which is what our bow is going to be going on. I have a bunch of these little clear elastics. We're going to be using those. A pair of scissors just in case. I've got some butcher's paper to sublimate with, as well as this 13 by 19 A-sub paper. Now, if you don't have a wide format printer, you can print this on 8 by 10 paper, or even you can do the 8 by 14, or even you can do the A4 paper, whatever you've got on hand. I have a wide format printer and it makes it easier whenever I'm trying to sublimate. So that's what I'm gonna be doing today. And then I also have a cutting mat. As long as your mat goes up to 20 inches by 5 inches, you'll be good. And then I've got this little OmniGrid, which is gonna help me actually cut my fabric. And then obviously, if you're gonna sublimate, you will need a heat press. And I've got this preheating to 385, which is the heat setting for our sublimation project today. You could technically use a Cricut EasyPress if that's what you had on hand and you did have access to sublimation ink as well as a sublimation printer. But we're going to use the heat press just because I get more of a consistent sublimation every time that I use the heat press. For today's project, we are going to be designing in Canva. If you're not familiar with Canva, it's relatively simple to follow. I did have issues when I first started using Canva finding how to start my design. So what we're gonna do, you're just gonna come to this top right and you're gonna create a design. And then it's gonna have these suggested sizes right here. I'm gonna go to the custom size option. And sometimes whenever you open this up, it's set to pixels. If you know the pixel size and you wanna do it that way, you can, but I always change it to inches. And I'm gonna be printing on our biggest sublimation paper, which is the 13 by 19. If you're printing on 8.5 by 11, go ahead and plug those numbers in here. And then you're gonna create your new design. So this is what we've got to work with. Now today we're using a Halloween exclusive design that we made just for this project. And it is so, so cute. This is a little hand-drawn pumpkin art and I'm just obsessed with this. I think it's so cute. And the good thing about this is since it is sublimation, normally we would have to reflect the image, but the pumpkins are the same either way. So we don't really have to worry about that necessarily in this step. Now, if you're like super picky, obviously you can flip your image and, you know, make it reverse. But we're just gonna keep it as is. And what I'm gonna do before I repeat this pattern is remove my background. So right now it doesn't look like it has a background, but it actually does have a white background on it. And I'm going to edit my image and remove my background. This just makes it a little bit more seamless whenever we replicate it to make our pattern. So I just remove the background. I'm gonna select apply. And I'm gonna shrink this down until it's half the size, half the width of the page. So, and you can tell that because that purple line pops up. And then what I'm gonna do is duplicate it. I'm gonna pull this down right here, and then I'm gonna duplicate it again. And you can see there's little lines in between. Like if I'm not hovering over it, you can see that there's lines. So what I'm gonna do is select it and just kind of use the arrows on my keyboard to bump it together until it is seamless. And then what I'm gonna do is select all three of those and duplicate them and then bump it until we get a seamless look. I just wanna make sure this fills up the entire page. You can see I've still got an edge over here. So I'm gonna select all of it and just kind of make it a little bit bigger. So once you have your design exactly how you want it, we're gonna add a background color. And since we removed the background, we can pretty much select any color that we want for this. You obviously don't wanna use anything too similar to the color of the pumpkins. The blue is not really giving me the fall vibes that I like. Actually, none of these are working great for me. The oranges are pretty close, but I think I want to pick a custom color. So you can select this little artist palette right here, and then this plus sign with the rainbow frame around it. And what I'm going to do is come to just like in between the red, orange, and yellow area. And I think I want to do like a light peachy beige situation. I don't want it to be too dark. Like I feel like that takes away. I want to add to it. And I'll also say that if you do a darker color, if your pattern is not perfectly lined up, you're going to be able to see the pattern where it meets. So I'm going to do just like a lighter peachy tan color. That is perfect. And then after you've got your background color, you are ready to go ahead and save your project. So what we're gonna do, make sure you change the name to whatever you wanna call it. I've titled this Pumpkin Bow. And then I'm going to select Share, which seems silly since we're downloading it. We're not actually sharing it. This is just where you go in order to save your project. And then I'm going down here to download and make sure it's selected as PNG. And I'm just gonna click download. And then you can see it pop down right here. Once it's downloaded, you're gonna open this right here and you're gonna get a preview of your image. Then we're gonna select File, Print. And I'm gonna be using the Epson Workforce printer today. We wanna make sure and select the correct paper size. I am doing it on the Super B A3 paper, which is 13 by 19. So I'm going to do this option right here. And then I'm gonna go right here to this preview drop-down menu. I'm just gonna click that and select media and quality. I'll keep the feed from at auto select, but the media type I wanna change to photo matte paper. And you'll notice the quality automatically goes to best. If it doesn't automatically go to best, make sure that you change it. And then from there, we're just gonna go ahead and select print. Okay, while our design is printing, I'm gonna go ahead and cut my fabric. So you're gonna need a 5 by 20 inch piece of fabric. So I have a lot of fabric I'm dealing with here. I'm just gonna open this up and you can see I've already cut a chunk out of this playing around, trying to figure out the best way to make these. And just find a good edge. Kind of get your excess fabric out of the way so you don't accidentally cut it. And I know we're using fabric today, but we are not going to be sewing at all, which is beautiful if you're wanting to make just a simple, quick, fun Halloween craft. So I'm just lining this up to my edge here. And it's obviously not perfect, but it's close. So the good thing about having this OmniGrid is that you're going to be able to lay this on top of the cutting mat and it's going to make your cuts super easy and clean. So I'm just lining this up right on top of the fabric. And then I'm just going to cut around this. This is not my exact measurements. This OmniGrid is actually 24 by 6. So I'm just going to cut this and then we'll trim it down. There's just a lot of extra fabric. And then if it didn't cut all the way through, you can use the rotary cutter. You can grab some scissors and just kind of snip. Make sure you're using a really good rotary cutter whenever you cut these. That way the edges are super smooth, because this fabric does tend to fray a little bit. And you just want a really nice clean line. I'm gonna line this up, but I'm gonna pull it a little bit below the line because I wanna get a really, really good straight line. And you can see this is at 6 inches and 24 inches. We need it to be 5 inches here and 20 inches here. So what I'm gonna do is take my Omni grid. I've got my fabric lined up flush to the left side, and then you can see 20 on my Omni grid. I'm just gonna pull that 20 all the way to the right edge of my fabric. So 20 inches here. I'm gonna go ahead and snip this portion off. Okay, so it's 20 inches wide. Now we need to make sure it is 5 inches tall. So we just need to trim an inch off of it. This edge I feel like is straighter than the other edge, so I'm lining it up with this bottom edge of my cutting mat. And then I'm just lining up one of the edges of the Omni grid with this 5. You can see there's a 5 right here, and then I'm lining it up over here to the line on this back grid. If this is super confusing, you can just measure out 5 by 20. Don't let the measuring stress you out. It just needs to be that measurement, whatever it takes to get it there. And this cut we want to be as clean as possible. Okay, I've got a few little loose pieces down here. I'm gonna just trim those off just to clean everything up. Okay, and then you've got your 5 inch by 20 inch piece of fabric. What we're gonna do before we make the bow is actually sublimate our pattern onto this. So I'm gonna go grab our printed out design. Okay, so our design is printed out, and what I'm gonna do is just lay this down, and I'm gonna take my bullet fabric. So if you look close, you can see there's a texture on one side, and then the other side is smooth. We're wanting to sublimate on the textured side, so on this bumpy side. And you can also see we're sublimating a 20-inch bow. Our printer only does 19 inches. So basically what I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna sublimate on like the first portion of it. My heat press is only 15 inches. So I'm gonna have like a 5-inch tail right here. That 5-inch tail is gonna actually be wrapping around the middle of our bow. So if we have to sublimate the actual bow part right here, that's fine. We'll sublimate another section of this paper onto the last 5 inches of the bow, if that makes sense. I'm gonna show you guys everything. I don't want you to get like super overwhelmed or anything. But what I'm gonna do first is sublimate the first portion. So the first 10 inches of this, the first 15 inches of this are gonna be sublimated first. So I'm gonna take my butcher paper and I'm gonna lay some down inside of the heat press. Just taking a piece right there. And then I'm gonna rip off a piece to go on top of it. And then I'm also I'm gonna cut off 2 more pieces to sublimate the second half of the bow. And make sure whenever you go to sublimate that your sublimation paper is on top of your bow rather than underneath. It will sublimate, but it won't sublimate well. It'll look really bad, so don't do that. And also, I am going to cut off this excess paper for now because we just don't need it. And I don't want it to go into the heat press and like, we wouldn't be able to use it anymore. So I'm just gonna take a rotary cutter and I'm gonna cut across this top edge. Okay, so set that to the side. We're gonna save it for later. And I'm not gonna tape any of this down. It presses super flat, so I'm not worried about it. I'm just gonna put the fabric on the bottom side. So you can go ahead and lay your fabric in your press just like this. We've got the bullet, we've got the textured side of the bow facing up. It's looking at me. And then I'm going to put my sublimation face down. And then we're at 385. I'm going to press this for 40 seconds. Make sure you put in your butcher paper on top. So just be super careful when you're pulling out your paper. And then you can see it sublimated off of there, and you see we've got a little extra because we had a tail. And look how pretty this is, you all. I mean, that is just gorgeous. Total fall vibe. But we've got this little baby like extra area hanging out over here. So I am going to cut off a piece of our extra that we printed out to sublimate on to the rest of it. Now you could find the perfect lineup if you wanted to, like you could see where this ends, but honestly, you all, this part right here gets wrapped around the bow, so you can't even tell. As long as you've got some sort of the pattern, like some portion of the pattern on there, it's really not going to matter. But I know some people want it to be perfect, and if that's the case, then you can try to match up the pumpkins that are right here to the pumpkins on the excess of your paper. And that is totally up to you. I'm just going to cut this small portion off right here. And then we're going to repeat the process. Make sure your fabric is facing up in the heat press, and make sure you're using new butcher paper whenever you go to sublimate the second half. So I've got a new piece of butcher paper in here. I'm going to lay this part of my bow in here, and I want to make sure that my sublimation pattern doesn't overlap onto any of this over here that I've already sublimated. So I'm just going to line it up really close. I'm going to put a new piece of butcher paper on top as well. And then we're going to do 40 seconds at 385. So now you can see obviously where my pattern ended. That is totally fine. You're not going to be able to see any of that. So the next thing we need to do is actually make our bow. Okay, so for this part, I've got my elastics handy, and then I have my little band that I'm going to be putting it on. You can get these in bulk on Amazon. I think ours came in like a 60, like a amount of 60. And then these are just the Goody brand from Dollar Tree, Walmart. You can get these lots of different places. The clear is the best though. You can't really see them, but I feel like if you could see it, you would want it to be clear. You wouldn't want like a red or a blue rubber band through the middle of your hair bow. But what I've done is taken my bow, and you can see here, this is that extra part. This is the bulk part. This is where the actual bow is going to be coming out of. I'm just going to put this face down, okay? And I'm just lining it up with this edge. And what I'm going to do is use this measurement guideline down here to make my 5-inch bow. So I'm going to take this to the left side, and I'm going to fold it over until the edge of the fabric is at the 5 mark. So you can see this is the 5 mark right here. And then I'm going to take the right edge and I'm going to pull it to the 10 mark. Okay, so you've got this little flap hanging over here. This is the weird area that we sublimated. And then we're going to have a 5-inch bow right here. What you're going to do next is cinch this up right in the middle. So technically, right in the middle would be like 7.5. You get like 2.5 inches. So I'm just going to go right here and I'm going to pinch this up. And the more you do this, the better you get at pinching it. And so this is actually the back of the bow. This is the front of the bow. So what I'll do, once I get it how I want it, I'm going to take one of these elastics I'm gonna put it right through the middle, and it helps for me to grab this in the middle and then kind of pull it over, just like that. And you can loop it twice if you want, which I'm going to do really quick. Okay. And this fabric will fray a little bit on the edges, so just be super careful when you're doing this. Okay, so you're gonna end up with something like this. So make sure everything is even. You wanna make sure this side and this side are proportional. And then you're gonna have this little tail back here. So this can be a little bit confusing to show people how to do, but I'm gonna do my best. I feel like I'm showing you all how to do like a messy bun because it gets all crazy and you're tucking fabric in and all that, but we don't have to sew. So that's kind of a perk of doing it this way. But what I've done, I'm just taking my little band, I'm gonna put it on my wrist, and I'm just gonna grab this ponytail, okay? I'm gonna pull that onto it. So this is what it looks like. We've got the band on here, and then we've got this like this. And I'm gonna pull that tight, okay? It's good if you can get like up close to the base of it. Just pull that tight. And then whatever you gotta do to kind of hold the bow and hold the band in place, we're just wrapping this around. So you wanna make sure that the pattern part of your fabric is actually showing. Okay, just gonna keep going. And it may make your bow look a little funny right now, but we can go back and adjust it. So I'm wrapping this around the front. And then you wanna make sure that this is straight down, okay? What we'll do next is tie this in a knot. So we're basically just looping it around the front of the bow and then tying it in a knot. So I'm getting a good handle on this, and I'm gonna go right here where we first looped it around, and I'm gonna tie it through. And it may take you a few tries to get this. It took me 2 or 3 times to finally get it how I want it. It's kind of tight, but you wanna get your fingers in there and then pull that all the way through. So it looks like this, not cute. So let's tighten that knot up. I'm gonna tighten and kind of adjust my fabric as I do so. I just wanna make sure and keep that knot at the back of my bow rather than letting it go to the front. So when I say the back, we either need to make sure that our band is back here where the knot is, or our knot is where our little band is. So I've got my knot in the back as well as my band, and I am just going to trim off this extra fabric. Make sure to be super careful you're not actually gonna cut into your bow. And you can cut this until it's as neat as you want it. And I'm gonna come up here and kind of adjust my fabric. Just be super careful with the fraying. And then that is it. So this is our final product. How cute is this, you all? And so easy to put together. I feel like if you sat down and sublimated your fabric, you could just make these super, super quick. You can make them for all the little girlies in your life. And I just love, love, love this pattern. So I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. I hope you all enjoyed making this craft with me today. We have really, really been enjoying putting these following crafts together for you all. And I love, love, love how simple this was to put together. So super easy. If you've already got your sublimation tools on hand, you could whip this up in no time. If you're new here and you enjoyed what you saw today, make sure that you hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss any of our new crafts. You can hit the little bell and it'll notify you anytime that we post or we go live. We'd love to have you as a part of our crafting community. We are a membership-based crafting community here at Makers Gonna Learn. We have exclusive content for all of our members, cut files, fonts, you name it, and we would love for you to be a part of the community with us. We will see you guys in the next one. Bye.